All right, aloha. Aloha. Welcome to the last Kuleana and Community Talk story for the semester. We have a great guest for you today. But before I introduce her, I want to thank you all for coming throughout the weeks. I want to encourage you all to go ahead and fill out that survey so that we can get feedback and hopefully so that we can do this again next semester. Um, and I also want to thank our sponsors, Chancellor Office, Center for Global Exchange, Kipuka, Kilohana, and a few other faculty members who helped out in this process. Today's speaker is going to talk about the unique position UH Hilo has to the community. She has a very interactive presentation for us today. Sue Lee Loy is our newest elected state representative, but formerly she was a county council member for many, many years, and she has deep roots to the community here, going to Waiākea High School. So, I know, I don't know, we're trying to target on that. But please welcome. Please welcome Representative Sue Lee Loy.
Thank you so much. Oh, mahalo. I just want to start there. You know, Hilo High has a saying, once a Viking, always a Viking. But we are warriors. And so thank you, Doctor, for that great introduction. I thought what I could do is start a little bit about myself, some of the work that I did on the council, and then I was hoping to make it a little more interactive. As a newest member of the legislature, we're in the middle of setting our priorities for this next legislative session and basically the next 2 years. So I was just hoping that you guys could help me develop that. So of course, as Doc mentioned, grew up in the district, went to all the public schools, Waiākea Waiākea Intermediate, Waiākea High School, and UH Hilo. Like so many in the room, you know, family happens, and so I had to take a little bit of a break from school, but currently in a program for communications and a master's in public policy out of the University of San Francisco. And so for those of you who are in it right now, don't worry, because you can still come back and still get an education. My 8 years on the council, I started with the Public Works Committee and used my time on that committee to really dig in deep with our mass transit system. It was completely broken at that time. Called for an audit, which gave us the opportunity to really get a roadmap on how to repair that system. That audit came out and it was broken. At the same time, the council adopted the GE tax, which allowed for us to use a percentage of the GE to help modernize our transportation system. On Oahu, we know it as rail, but for here, we know it as our Helean system. With that audit, in addition to the funding, we as members of the council really focused on making sure that they had the right resources and began to retire a lot of our old bus systems along with the purchase of brand new ones. In addition to that, we saw a huge influx from our federal government with the ARPA dollars and the bipartisan infrastructure bill and moving to green energy. So there was a large decision on the council to start modernizing them, but also making them energy efficient and fuel efficient. My time also on the council, I'm looking at Kim over there because she knows. I spent a lot of time working very hard to modernize our construction codes. At a time when I started, the construction codes was housed in 3 different areas of our county code. And so when you went in to pull a permit, if you were building a new house, you would have to pull 3 permits: your house, your electrical, and your plumbing. And oftentimes, those 3 sections of the code didn't talk to one another. In addition to that, we saw a lot of renewables come online with solar. And so again, the electrical code wasn't talking to the construction code. And so we modernized that, housed them in one area of the code, made them talk to one another, which served as the foundation for what we know as our building permit system, which they called EPIC, the electronic permitting system. Now, it failed. It fell flat on its face. And at the time when we were evaluating that process, there was a huge acknowledgement that there was a goal about creating an electronic permitting system that was forward facing and where others could see. However, the county budget wasn't investing in getting people trained up, educating them, or giving them the tools to run the systems. Outdated scanners, computers, and just lack of training. So again, the council invested in that. At a time when I started that process, which was literally 8 years ago, our building permit system, and this is for new home construction, I gotta categorize it because there's a lot of permits out there. The building permit system for a new home, single family residence, was at 283 days. We set into code an opportunity to set some benchmarks, introduced a pre-approved package process where if those plans were pre-approved, you could pull them off the shelf with a goal of having that permit turn around in 10 days. We're not there yet. However, last check, single family residence was at 68 days, which was still a very big improvement from 283 days. Now, that's just single family residence. We have other things like commercial and adaptive reuse, along with, everybody's upgrading their homes, adding in solar. The council also introduced a process where if you were getting a solar permit, you could go ahead and start that process, and they would circle back around at the end once you got it complete. So kind of maybe not skipped over the building permit process, but at least gave them permission to go ahead and get started, and we would catch up. Some of the other highlights for me on the county council was definitely a charter amendment around salaries for all of our elected officials. At the time, the Salary Commission would introduce these salaries for members of the cabinet, the mayor, and legislative staff at the meeting. And it never gave the public the opportunity to comment and or provide feedback. And so this charter amendment allowed for the introduction of salaries and salary ranges and to kind of put a hold on it for 30 days to allow the public an opportunity to comment and give feedback. Um, Proudly, that was done in my freshman term and passed at 89% of our voters. So I was pretty proud of that. And just trying to introduce more transparency in government. And then I'm going to kind of gracefully try and get over to my work at the legislature. During my time at the council, we had a great network with our representatives. Representative Onishi, who I actually grew up with, his wife, Joni, was my high school teacher at Waiākea High School, and then my college teacher, because she actually came over to the university. Great relationship. We were able to lock in a number of CIP projects for the community, which now includes the improvements and modernization of Waikiuka Gym, For those of you who are driving out to Kea'au, at the corner of High, we call that 4 Mile Creek Bridge. The goal is to widen that bridge and then create a better circulation plan and lighting at the bottom of High so that we can actually have better traffic conditions in that area, but also lend itself to our High Street fire station, which just can't make the turn at the bottom of High to go left out to Kea'au. And so that's the goal at the bottom of High, along with Chris Todd, another representative. Unfortunately, he went Hilo High School, but it's okay. We get along great. He's been able to help a number of county projects like skate park that we're planning over right across the Civic. He's also been an incredible champion for me, along with Senator Lorraine Loy, when it came to the revitalization of Uncle Billy's. And it was just a wild and crazy idea that I had when I was in the shower washing my hair. And at the time, the governor had issued an emergency proclamation for housing. And that's a very complex issue. And as I was getting ready, I was like, it's just too complex. It's got to be more focused. It has to be something very specific with a very linear outcome. I said, oh, what if we did an emergency proclamation for the condemnation and the demolition of Uncle Billy's? Sounds great. Singular goal. It's an eyesore. It's the economic engine for us in Hilo, along with where our visitors stay, if you want to call it that. And so I reached out to our friends at the police department, along with the fire department, to capture data about the calls for service that they were having in the area. And what we discovered is the county, by way of fire and police, was spending $500,000 in calls for services. And that was just absolutely unacceptable to me. We were just managing an area that was high in crime, a lot of homeless, drug activity. And I couldn't understand why the state would continue to allow this to happen while the county poured its resources into it, and not into the facility, but into the area, because we weren't addressing the building. And so I authored a resolution to urge the governor and the Department of Land and Natural Resources to issue an emergency proclamation to condemn that building. And it worked. And happy to report, from the issuance of the emergency proclamation to the actual condemnation and it coming down, took a year and 2 months. And that was something that we had waited for. And I'm sure Mark Nakashima, if he was here, would say he tried for 15 years to do something better at Uncle Billy's. And it just highlighted how government gets in the way of itself with its bureaucratic red tape and checks and balances and procurement. Using that, I got elected to the legislature, and it's been a lot. It has been overwhelming. I am in a freshman class of 11 new members of the House, following a sophomore class, which was 28 deep. So by my math, we have the better part of 39, almost 40 new members of the House with 4 years or less experience. Lot of skill sets, lot of talents, lot of passion for them, but the learning curve is steep. I do want to highlight though, we have Matthias Kush, who is our member out of House District 1, myself representing House District 2, which I call Hilo proper in the best British accent I can muster. And then Chris Todd with House District 3, and Gregor Ilagan, who rounds us out from Kea'au to Puna. And then, of course, Lorraine, Senator Inouye, and then Joy on the Puna side, our senators. And I really do believe this is one of the strongest Hawaii Island delegations that we have. In addition to great friends like Kirsten Kahaloa, Nicole Lowen, those from Kona, and then Tim Richards and Drew Kanuha on the Senate side. And the best part about that is both Drew, Tim Richards, and I are products of the county council. And so when it comes to being freshmen, they're not freshmen anymore, but I like to call myself a red shirt freshman. A little bit of experience, but I understand how government works and then the various layers. And then finally, I do want to touch on something that's very near and dear to me just because of my time on the council. Um, I had the privilege and honor of representing 2 homestead communities of Panaewa and Keokaha. And that work with DHHL, along with the $600 million that the state has given them, is really, really making changes for the beneficiaries of our homestead communities. Holly Watson, who's the director there, comes from a business background and has really transformed that department to embrace their sovereignty a little bit and their place as an agency, but their goal of serving the beneficiaries through their trust obligations and the Native Hawaiian Homes Act with the federal government. I was hoping either to take questions, but at some point I also want to get some post check with you guys because I do have an assignment. I have to begin to formulate our legislative priorities. As far as committee assignments go, I know I will be sitting on the finance committee. So that's a good thing as a freshman. I get to learn about all the departments, but I also get to look at the checkbook. And so for those of you who have checkbook questions, if I don't know it, I'll be able to know it real quick here. I was asked as far as what other committees I wanted to sit on. I offered transportation because of my work here locally with the Public Works Department and managing our roads and mass transit. I offered up Waterland just because of some of the work that needs to happen through the Department of Land and Natural Resources, specifically the peninsula and other land holdings that DLNR has. I did offer up higher education because of I've got Hilo and HCC, DOE, you name it. I've got a number of educational facilities in the district. Then, of course, something that I know I'm not a subject matter expert in, but I do have a lot of lived experience, is health and human services because I have a son with special needs. And so struggling through his time with DOE in a special needs program, along with those disabilities and the needs for ADA compliance and other things, not only in our DOE facilities or college facilities, but just in community. And then, of course, finally, just how do I prepare him as a parent, right? And maybe one day have housing that really serves our disability community along with our kupuna. And I do see that kind of exactly the same, because the needs of our kupuna are exactly the same needs of our disability community, along with cost of living and fixed incomes and just some of the services that they provide. So that's a little bit about me. And I'm watching this gang right here who's staring me down because I grew up with Representative Harvey Tajiri. I actually would canvass for him when I was a kid. And so I did want to open it up to questions and then maybe reserve maybe about 20 minutes at the end so you guys can help me. And I'm hoping that this discussion too will also help me evaluate some of the legislative priorities coming up. Come on, Harvey, you go first. No be shame.
What do you have in mind to move the University of Hawai'i forward?
So a couple of things. Definitely, there's a lot of money for modernizing the facilities. That's one. The other conversation that I've been just a small part of is using technology as a way to develop talent, along with a need to fill the pipe around our nursing and healthcare shortages and growing that pipeline in the university level. I'm waiting to hear back from our Board of Regents because they have some goals too, but definitely open to what's your thoughts, Harvey?
This is your show. I really wasn't intending to ask even one.
Yeah.
Maybe you can have the audience instead of anything.
Well, I saw Ike here too. Ike, anything? David, I know you had a question, so.
I do, Sue. Thank you for coming. Congratulations on your promotion. David Miner, retired fire captain and retired military. And thanks again. I sit on the board for HIV and Hawai'i Island Veterans Memorial. We got the housing put in over here for Kupuna and our vets. Thank you very much for that. My question is, 40 years ago, I started attending the University of Hawai'i and got through partial, then went into the workforce, went into police department, fire department, and recently retired a few years back. While I was here, I'm also a Hilo High grad, so it wasn't a lot of kid at that time. But 40 years ago, I got involved in student government. And one of the projects we were working on, because I had a good friend who was a quadriplegic, also a firefighter vet, got him to come back to school and help him with depression and just getting involved in the community again. So we started a project to get this place more ADA accessible back then. This is the 80s, so it's a while back. So we went to the legislature, the student body government guys here, and went to the Senate and got money appropriated for ADA projects on campus. One of them was this parking, the covered walkway there, which is very few. On the campus, there's no other covered areas for handicap parking. And the reason why I say that, because now I'm coming back to finish a degree, work on another one, hopefully going to counseling, helping with vets in our first responders.
Yes, thank
you. One of the questions that, Hilo rings a lot, great campus if it was in Hawaii, right? But, during one of these run, the project came out, we're getting 20 million for revitalizing campus. My question was to certain individuals in the campus facility is there any money, what happened to the money that was appropriated for covered walkways make it more ADA accessible. What happened to that money? Is the 20 million that's being granted, is that anything to be done on that? And the defensive bureaucratic walls were not. You know, not to be intimidating, but I just wanted to find out. We had a problem with from Mookini going down to the learning center where I spent a lot of time trying to get back into school, right? I'm thankful for them. They got a great staff and they're helping out and, you know, the students. I'm really thankful for them getting me back into school. But I've watched kids, the students, run down that walkway, slip in the rain. You know, it's challenging, you know. And if it was raining here today, to get to this classroom, you either have to go through the cafeteria, up the elevator, and come down this steep ramp here to get here, or come through a loading dock in the back. There's a little handicap parking spot, washed out, it's not covered. Handicap, got to go into that loading dock and come into the through the library there. I guess that's my question. Is there anything we can do? And I'm not talking level the place, you know, to make major changes. Just get some covered walkways. Did a great job on the outside patio here. But if you come when it's raining and Hilo has that windy rain, 1/3 of it or 2/3, you can't even sit outside because the rain's blowing in. So that's another maybe a project we drop a the tarp. It's not a tarp, but yeah, like the same materials they make sails out of, right? To make those retractable kind of thing. But anyway, my question is, bottom line is,
Where the money? Where the money? Where the money? I will have to check. Definitely, talking about an appropriation that was back from the 80s. We can check. And I just want to thank Shelly and Selena. Shelly's here to record a lot of the comments here. That way I can actually take it back. I will have to check on the budget. But here's what I do want to offer, and just leaning in on my work with Uncle Billy's. And not that we would emergency proclaim that, you know, these things need to happen, but that process helped me highlight that bureaucracy that's in the way. And what I wanted to do, well, and I've already begun to do, is take a look at the procurement process, right? And this gang knows, right? It's the legislature will put the money, but it's up to the administration to encumber the money. And the legislature has like a 3-year window to get it done. And for whatever reason, it's not enough time, or the departments tell us it's not enough time, or the plans are not ready. And so the goal for me is to look at those things and create those efficiencies, have projects like this one, which I think is a priority project, and maybe because of my son, I'm a little more passionate about those things, but elevate those priority projects. In addition to within our county code, which is now also our state building code, there's a appendix that architects and engineers can use called universal codes. And that universal codes really provides for zero entryway, right? So the grade for those walkways. We use it in housing construction for our kupunas to get into the showers, right? And just elevating that section of the code when we're trying to push these projects out. Follow this universal standard, and whatever the cost is, it's beneficial for a huge community. Because let's face it, we fit fine in a disability bathroom. But oftentimes we're having to augment facilities so that disability community can get into a bathroom. And so to champion those ideas through places and spaces that are already available to help them encumber the money faster and get the project done quicker would be a goal for me. Oh my God.
could I just touch on one?
Sure.
Just kind of piggybacking on what Harvey was talking about, how do we move forward at the university? And we spoke earlier, we're competing with online programs now, and like I said, a lot of the veterans that aren't physically able to make it here to campus, are doing online kind of stuff. But now with, Kapuna housing, that the second part of that question was, what about opening up for, to entice our Kapuna early retirees to coming back to school? Whatever programs like us talking, telling me about.
Yeah, no, but yeah, I'll borrow Kai a little bit. The goal was
It's a population we can reach out there.
like a senior discount program for people returning to school. I mean, I fall in that bucket, right? Like you, David, I was going to school and then had kids and I had to get a job for medical to get a house, right? And our focus just changes because we're busy, focusing on our kids and getting them shoes for volleyball. But yes, absolutely, to revisit that incentive, right, for those who have now raised their kids and want to get back to school. And then, of course, like you mentioned, right, online, I know there's a lot of work that the UH is doing online along with Arizona State University. And so how do we partner better, right, and provide those incentives? Oh, I'll go here and then over there.
What are your ideas or plans for helping the houseless population in Hilo?
So I think this is where I feel lucky that I was over at the county and then stepping into the state role. Two parts. The county introduced a two-tier tax on $1 million property owners. So they would be taxed for their $1 million property and then moved into a second tier where that tax would be directly assigned to our homeless population. In addition to that, the council adopted a housing and homeless fund. And between those two funds, just here in Hawaii County, we have $20 million to address the homeless population and the housing and homeless population. And then partnering that, and I know Governor Green has a couple of kauhale projects. I've spoken to our Office of Housing along with the state, and Hilo doesn't have one planned yet. I think they were throwing out ideas, and one idea was the state building, the lower parking lot, which is right adjacent to the Wailoa Visitor Center. And part of the reason why is they want someplace flat, close to water, so they can bring in trailers, close to sewer, something a little more plug and play. After some community outreach, got a lot of pushback. One, because it's our business district, the county building, the courts is there. And then we have a lot of families in Hilo Lagoon area. Along with that, Richard Onishi left a lot of money to continue our Bayfront Parks and Trails program, where we would connect all of our Bayfront Parks and Trails through Wailoa Visitor Center to help, just have visitors, walk, whether it's from the harbor, from the hotels, down to farmers market, Hilo, and back around. And so there's a little bit more of a goal to use those pathways as a way to stimulate economy, and then use the Wailoa Visitor Center to introduce them to so many other things that are amazing for Hilo, whether it's our arts or the storytelling that goes along at that site. So right now, that $20 million from the county is available, that the county programs every year. And then partnering that with more of the work that Governor Green is doing with our homeless population would be one part. And then it's also growing a workforce. So for those of you who are in college and thinking about a career, our social workers, our nurses, our doctors who help serve that population. My last look, we had at the state level for that area of concern was almost 400 plus vacant positions in that area. And so it's two parts, right? Growing the workforce, filling those positions because they got to do the work, right? And then partnering that with the money that's available for the facilities and creating spaces for them. Okay, want to follow up? Any thoughts?
So that they're not gonna do the Wailoa area, but they're still looking for another area.
Yeah, and again, with the parameters that it's flat or level, close to services, close to water, close to sewer. Any state parcel, I think they were looking all around. There was an idea that it would go up by Rainbow Falls. But they all just unraveled a little bit for whatever reason. But we also saw Kona step up a little bit more and using some of the state lands that they have in Kona, specifically around the old airport. And then some of the other work that they're doing over in Kona with the Kihale project which is probably like half a mile from the West Hawaii Civic Center. Yeah. Hang on. We had one more person in the back first. Hi.
So I heard you were actually helping with the disabilities, right? So my thing is that like as much as I love the programs that helps with the kid with special needs, special disabilities, separating them from the rest of the class is doing more harm than good because all it does is just create a barrier that does not allow these kids with special needs to feel like they're actually a kid and instead create a larger canyon freaking thing that makes the able-bodied and neuralistic people feel like they're better than the neurodivergent and disabled. So my idea is that is there a way to create a special program or training for teachers to help their kids be able to get along with the disabled, the neurodivergent, without creating a barrier or separating?
That's an excellent question. And I've actually, as a parent advocate, have pushed very hard. I'll share a little bit of my own journey. When my son started in his special needs class, they had a PECS program where they would have pictures of milk or the park or the toilet on laminated cards in a book with Velcro. And he would have to identify the picture and place it on another Velcro board that says, I want, and move that laminated card with the Velcro on the back to, I want to go to the bathroom. And that's how he had to communicate. At the same time, Apple was coming out with some great phones. And they have amazing apps. And I had to push as a parent. There were so many communication tools within these apps where my son could learn to string those same pick cards on an app and then hit play, which would be voice recognized, and it would say, I want to go to the bathroom. It took a bit because DOE and the special needs program, to your point, is the box inside the box inside the box. And so it took a lot of parent advocacy for me to push that we wanted this to be a communication style for my son. God bless, because we now have a number of partners at DOE that have adaptive technology to help our kids with special needs communicate, other sensory issues that the kids may have, and even scanning for them to read books, right? That will be voice activated and be able to read for them. Further on to that, Waiākea High School program, Waiākea High School program for special needs is just amazing. They allow for our students to go into community with their adaptive tools. They go shopping, they go to the park, and the aides help introduce them to members in community and encourage them to communicate, right? I think as a parent, we're always rushing in and like, oh, my son wants chicken nuggets, right? And we just cut in short. But in school and with our students who are just amazing, we'll force him into that. And so to the point of diversity, equity, inclusion, I think we see a lot of that growing just right now with our youth, and then just allowing community to catch up at some point. It will definitely merge. I just will say this, my son is way more popular than me. I will go all over and people will start to say, hi, Luke. And I'm like, who's that? And they were like, oh, we see him at the park. And so there definitely is some angels in community who will recognize those disabilities and help out. And so to encourage more of that, I think those communication tools help. Go ahead, Gerald.
Yeah, first of all,
Congratulations.
Or condolence.
you're going to be part of a team that historically has really helped develop the university and, of course, Hilo and hospital. But I just wondering, you know, I read your bio and you talk about development, environmental permits, long-range planning, and background. Back to the concept to see where we are with university zoning,
Oh, okay.
because I think we got that through. We did, right? Yeah, because I did testimony on it and got it through. And, you know, when you talk about bureaucracy getting in the way, to have university zoning, it's a way to bypass a lot of the obstacles. So that's one very important thought. And then it could bring in, because you talk about the role in the community and education in this district, schools, the hospital, and UH Hilo, and the community college. It's probably the most significant place that you can develop with energy, you know, the big picture. Yeah. Without the big picture, you're not going to have an educational foundation, you know. But Manoa, Harvey and I were looking at it, and they do a lot of public-private partnerships. And so I think that's something that just can't simply rely, you know, on the representative or the senator, but it's something that could be pursued, especially if you have the university zone. And then I think it helps with the long-range planning. Yeah, this campus right now is built for 5,000 to 6,000 students purposely. I don't know what the enrollment is now, but that's what it was built for. The only thing that's missing is more student housing, but the private sector will come in if you talk about, you know, the university zone. And the last point, it stops when kind of Harvey and I begin to work, you know, in university. But have you read Ed Cormandy's book?
I have not.
You gotta read it.
You can get one online for
You
me.
can get one.
Oh, thank you. Thank you.
You can, well, get it. Yeah.
Well, thank you. You're absolutely right. I think there's a lot of synergy happening right now. The county is going through their general plan update. And so maintaining that university bubble is critical.
It may also stretch to the community college,
Correct.
if you can check it out.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And then to your point about partnerships, it's an ecosystem, right? The university in so many places really is a campus within a campus. It's not only for education, but it's housing for teachers, right? And so how do we collectively, like you said, take that university bubble and create an ecosystem? And thank God, a lot of the infrastructure is already there, right? Water is there, sewer is there. And so how do we leverage that with a developmental private sector entity and incentivize that by saying, hey, help come build some of these things. You don't have to put in the infrastructure, and the infrastructure has capacity. Do we give you tax incentives? Do we provide you other opportunities for housing, alleviating housing in other areas? How do we connect transportation? And so how do we use those assets to our advantage to those private sector communities so that we can grow that kind of ecosystem that makes sense? And I mean, that is the goal, right? Is to create capacity in areas that are ready for it and elevate those projects, right? Never mind the, the yeah, I mean the zoning. Yeah, right. Go ahead, Kim.
The need for two things. The first is that the need for early childhood education has been some for the 20 some years that I have been here. And I would wonder what the possibility is, especially unique to you and you in your position, about almost standardizing the inclusion of preschool facilities. Something as simple as a drop-in mobile unit, like you would see on a DOE campus, drop-in mobile unit. When we talk about increasing the pipeline of workforce and who we are looking to do those more advanced jobs, childcare must be a part of that conversation. Otherwise, those folks simply will either not come at all, or they will not be able to stay. We lose so much local talent because the numbers just don't work. And preschool has to be a part of them to be able to get to work. And I see so much happening in the housing department that I would wonder what of that gets applied to preschools and if that can be a standard component considered for new build.
Yeah, love that idea and just build it right in. Couple of things. Absolutely, right? And we've seen where if it's close to kupuna housing, like just that relationship is amazing. Of course, Sylvia Luke, love her. When I grow up, I want to be Sylvia Luke. I'm gonna have to shrink a little, but so that work that she's doing with early childhood education. A couple of other things that I have ideas around about creating campuses and or communities or ecosystems that actually, when you have a kid, you come, drop the kid off, and you go to school, or come and you go to work. A couple of housing bills that got passed last year. One, which is very exciting to me, is called adaptive reuse. So we would take a commercial facility, a commercial building. We all know people work a little differently, and so going into the office isn't so much a thing anymore. They can work remotely. But taking existing commercial facilities, using that housing suite of bills that the legislature passed, specifically adaptive reuse, and use that to create the from beginning to end building. And I just did 2 tours on Oahu where they used the adaptive reuse right in downtown Honolulu, where one, close to shopping and walking. They've done work for complete streets, right? And everybody's on electric bikes over there or close to a bus stop. And toured the building. You'd be surprised. They have in those buildings already built in a child care facility. I mean, it's bigger than this room. And it's just partitioned off, but you know they're waiting for the talent to come in, right? That's on the ground floor with breakout spaces for offices, or Wi-Fi is already available, right? And then next few stories are businesses, law offices, you name it. And then above that is all of our residential facilities. So somehow using that kind of model and introducing them here with the understanding that they're all related. And we have great examples. And I'm a big fan of going first. I love it when we go first and try it out. And so, yeah, I mean, that's definitely something, just keeping our families together cuts down on transportation costs and maybe not even the need for a car, right? No need to pay car note and insurance. So,
The second thing is, my background is actually in mental health. I'm a licensed therapist and run a counseling center here in Hilo and have for a while now. And it's my belief that when the community trains the providers, they're more effective in community. And this school has a really fantastic program where you can get a mental health counselor's license, and that's fairly newest of the mental health provider types of licenses. Brian Kim, I believe, was the originator of that program, and Charmaine Higa has been really instrumental and manages the practicum students. I don't know all of the details, but the program is far too small. They have it going, and I think some of it has to do with accreditation, just like you would do in medicine, but they need more support, because what happens is they are getting 7 or 8 times the number of applicants as they can accept. And it's a good program, but it's not Harvard. We're losing talent. Many of them, if they're lucky, will go to Manoa in the LCSW program. But many of them, like the fellow in the back was saying, we're losing these guys to an online program on the mainland, and then they're not connected into community here. And so I would wonder what advantages to the pipeline would occur with better support around our in community campus here that we've got going. Grow the program.
politics. I will tell you right now, it's campus politics. Where's my UH gang? It is straight up campus politics. Our nursing program, right? We only can allow for 20 kids here, right? Because Kapiolani College has a nursing program and they have, facility, and it's their numbers, right? It's just straight up campus politics. David's back there, firefighter, right? Our paramedic program, they have to go to Honolulu. And to your point, how do they connect to community, right? When they're being educated on another island, having to find housing, flying back and forth, right? And it really, it turns out to be campus politics. And back to the budget and how do we grow the campus and make sure, right, that we're serving and these two, they know. I'm not saying anything that's not kind of out there, but definitely, right, getting that. I do want to also highlight a little bit of some of the work with Sylvia Luke and her preschool program. What I'm really excited about what she's done is because she's doing that work and growing the preschool program and getting kids educated earlier, I just really want to be able to use that information and start to forecast. Look, we have these many kids in preschool programs. We need to start housing for them already right now. We have to start the job pipeline. And if anything else, just the numbers. Oftentimes, we're looking at the numbers when they're graduating from high school, right? And this is a huge opportunity for us to get an early look at how many kids locally are in our preschool programs. Because let's face it, my son is disability community. The last time we built disability housing for that population was 50 years ago. And so if you think housing is tough for a regular person, it's even tougher for my son. So how do we take that and say, look, we got to go put money and make sure housing is ready for them, right? Grow the programs like that, whether it's healthcare. And then finally, and I say this very lovingly, Senator Donovan De La Cruz is my best friend, and everybody knows he know my best friends. But he's done amazing work with carving out the State Office of Mental Health and Wellness, which is a new office. And he is shoving tons and tons and tons of money into that department. And that director, she's amazing. And so having her champion and advocate for growing the program so that we can have more mental health providers, that's how we connect. And Donovan, everybody, he's tough. Look in the camera, Donovan is tough. But he does have like a big picture, and he sees the value of doing that to then start doing the work that we need to do. Yeah. It's 1:00 already. Hang on, David, I got one more over here.
Yeah. Okay. I'm just kind of following up. What's, I guess, something that we college students can help you in the community, and maybe like one advice for us?
Advocacy, for sure. The legislative session goes super fast. And I've been told this a million times. They just stack up the for and the against. And whoever stack is higher, that's where they go. That's where the energy goes. However, I do want to say this. We do have a new speaker, Nadine Nakamura, who is from Kauai, which is new. To have an outer or neighbor island speaker. Neighbor Island, our finance chair is Neighbor Island. Our majority caucus leader, Chris Todd, Neighbor Island. On the Senate side, Senate President Kochi, Kauai, Neighbor Island. Majority leader, Drew Kanuha, Neighbor Island. And so we are at a point where we acknowledge that the neighbor island has been carrying so much, and it's time. And everywhere I go, everybody tells me, Sue, Big Island is the last holdout for local families. Land is cheap, education is available. Sure, drive times are long if you're in Puna, but nothing like Oahu. Nothing. And so there is definitely a shift to acknowledge that the neighbor islands, and I always look at Harvey because he was the biggest champion when he was at the legislature 30 years ago. 30 years ago. Last year, right before me. And he knows all too well that having neighbor islanders in those key leadership roles to settle the Honolulu-centric voices a little bit will be huge. So back to my point about having a strong Hawaii Island delegation, but also having them in leadership roles. And the more advocacy we can hear from you folks. I'm hoping that Auntie Carla got a sign-in list with email addresses. Definitely want to be able to keep in touch with you guys that way.
I think because we're a big island, because you talk, UHU's role in the community, and second district. I don't want to put pressure on you, but I am. I hear you. But I am, because basically, you got to bring that theme to our delegation. Then UHU and the community college, talking about Kona as well, is very significant for Hawaii, not just big on Hawaii, because you got no more room to grow in Manoa. And I'm a graduate of Manoa. bad back then.
Well, no pressure, but I can, no pressure, but I can confidently say Matthias and Chris, Matthias Kush and Chris Todd, absolutely on board. If not, I'll just put my hair up and tell them, thank you, show them the way, let them know, let them know.
Thank you.
All right. Are we really, really done? Wow, that was quick. I never even get to my assignment.
Sue, thanks again. To the students, good question. Get involved. To the young students,
Oh yeah, David was there.
get involved. Get, be part of the student government now. And find out how it runs when you guys, no matter what community you're gonna go, you're always gonna have politics. And yes, tell Matthias to, get on the job.
Get on the job.
Just going back to what you said about the paramedic program. The reason why they have to go to Kilohana is because we don't have the call volume here in Hilo yet, right? We're not up to par on the knifings and shootings and everything.
Oh, yet. I don't know. It's like,
Yeah, we're training, we're training. But the fire science programs, we do need help.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
I did, hang on one second, Harvey. I did have an assignment because have some handouts here about some just some legislative topics, whether, and I'll read it off real quick, because we're still trying to form our committees. Topics and issues, agriculture, local food production, invasive species, security and crime, ag crime, artificial intelligence, artificial adaptation, innovative solutions, and research. Climate change, of course, adaptation, mitigation, and resilience, cost of living and tax reform, culture and arts, I don't ever want to forget that, economic development, workforce development, emergency preparedness, energy, renewable, environment, open space, flora, fauna, water, homeless, housing, affordable, attainable, gap, senior, insurance has really popped up, especially after our Maui fires. And we had lava so we were feeling it already. And I don't think we have really felt the brunt of our insurance portfolios quite yet, but it's coming. K to 12 education, preschool, and then special needs, mental health and wellness, post-secondary education, public safety, renewable energy, tourism, transportation, and just modernizing our transportation, whether it's paving roads, airports, harbors, and then our workforce development. If there is any topic there that really excites you, please come up and tell me, because I'm trying to help the caucus really focus in. I mean, we can only do so much with the time that we have, but I would love to elevate those priorities. And I can honestly say I heard from community, I didn't make it up on my own. All righty, anything else?
For taking time out of, I know, her very busy schedule, and we're so happy that you're able to come. And if you would leave that information with me, I'll make sure to try and get it disseminated.
That'd be great. And then we could just use the email address. I could send out a pulse survey where you guys can just click.